Hello everyone. Firstly, I just want to say it's been a while since I've filmed a fragrance video, and that is because I really don't like editing, and I've just been busy going to the city a lot for like dance related stuff, and I've been trying a lot of fragrances, so I hope I can make more fragrance videos talking a little bit more about all the stuff that I've tried. Until then, this is a different kind of video, and I hope the lighting's okay as well. Like, I hope it's not too dark in the room. I need to actually buy some lighting. But this video, anyway, is going to be something different. I want to talk a little bit about what fragrances I like from each house. So, my favorite or the best fragrances from each house, in my opinion. It may trigger a few people. You may disagree. So, this is not really like an objective thing. This is more a subjective thing. So, in my opinion, what I think is the best or my favorite from each house. I'm not really going to talk too much about the notes of each fragrance because then the video would go for way too long. But I may just roughly go over why I chose that fragrance if I have enough time to talk about the fragrances like that. So, firstly, let's get this started. Oh, and this is also designer fragrances only. The next video will be niche houses, and this will be designer houses. I can't do niche and designer houses in the same video because there's just way too many houses to go through. So this just pretty much a little bit easier for me to film like this. So first we'll start off with Dior. Dior, I chose Dior Homme Cologne. I think is the best from Dior, just because I think it's the most fresh, most mass appealing, the easiest one to like. I actually don't really like Dior fragrances that much. I think the other ones I like are Dior Homme Sport. I'd say Dior Sauvage, EDT or ADP. There's also like Dior Homme 2020. There is like your Rouge Trafalgar Spirit or Esprit. Anyway, a lot of the girls' Dior fragrances I think are actually a lot better than the guys for some reason. I don't like Dior Homme Cologne. Like, I don't like the iris that Dior do. Anyway, for that reason, I'm going to pick Dior Homme Cologne. Dior Homme Cologne. I'm going to pick that for the best from the Dior house because it's the most fresh, easy to like. In my opinion, I think it smells the best out of the Dior fragrances. Next is Chanel. This was a little bit harder to choose from just because Chanel do have a lot of great fragrances. I was kind of like debating between Allure Homme Sport, Allure Homme Original, or like the Bleu de Chanel fragrances, even though they also have a really nice one called Edinburgh. And they have Coromandel, which is also really nice. So Chanel have a tough choice because I like Bleu de Chanel and I also like Allure Homme, and I like the Allure Homme Sports. I would say Bleu de Chanel Parfum is probably going to be my pick for this list. I know Bleu de Chanel, pretty obvious for Chanel, but I say that because it's like the same as the last one with the Dior. It's probably the safest, most mass appealing, easiest one to like, and it's also the freshest. I think it's just probably got the best quality as well from all the Chanel fragrances. But if you're a girl, you'd probably like that Paris by Chanel. It's like Paris twice. And that's actually like a nice rose fragrance, sparkling, clean, fresh. That's also really good fragrance for women. So yeah, it was a tough choice with Chanel. I really wanted to go with Allure Homme because that was like one of my favorites for so long. I really liked that one. And I actually probably wear Allure Homme Sport and Allure Homme more than Bleu de Chanel anyway, but I'm just going to pick Bleu de Chanel Parfum. So next, from Armani. Armani also have really good quality fragrances and a lot of fragrances to choose from, but it was pretty tough because I'm not a big fan of Armani fragrances, actually. I like them, but I don't think at the moment I don't own any Armani fragrances. I think I sold them all. So it would have been between the Acqua di Gio flankers. It would have been between the Code flankers. It would have been between like the Stronger With You flankers or the Armani Preve lineup. Like you got like your Vetiver Diver, you got your Indigo Tanzanite, you got like all those really great fragrances too. So my pick is obviously Acqua di Gio Profondo Parfum. It was not easy, but I went with Profondo Parfum for a reason, because I like Profondo and I like the new Parfum, but the Profondo Parfum is the newest one that I tried, and I feel like the smell just kind of like, it's the best DNA so far that they've done. It's kind of like they've just improved upon that Profondo DNA a little bit more, and I really like the Profondo Parfum, so I'm going to go with that one. But I do like the Code Parfum as well. That's so good. I love the iris, the soapiness, the citrusy, creamy, whatever that DNA is in the Code. I like that a lot. So it was tough between Code Parfum and the Acqua di Gio flankers, but I went with, obviously the more mass appealing, safer fragrances with higher quality as well. I do think the quality in Acqua di Gio is just more top notch. Next is YSL. My opinion, the best YSL is Myself and the EDP version, not the new Le Parfum. The reason I said Myself is it's just how do I explain it? It's like sexy, but it's mass appealing and sexy at the same time. And yes, you have your YSL Y EDP, you have all your Y flankers, you have your L'Homme flankers, you have your La Nuit flankers, you have Tuxedo. YSL have probably the most bangers out of like any house. Trench, Libre, La Nuit, L'Homme, Y, Tuxedo, Baby Cat, like so many good fragrances. But for me, it's Myself, because you get like that mass appealing complemented DNA. It's a compliment magnet, like the Y fragrances, but the Y fragrances can be a little bit too strong or too sharp, too green, too much ambroxan going on in them. Myself is actually quite a smooth fragrance, and it's pretty impossible to hate that one. There's nothing really in that really is hateable or off-putting, and you get great performance out of it. It just lasts a really long time, and that was like, for me personally, I'm a little bit biased because that was like the fragrance my girlfriend, well, ex-girlfriend now that I was with, that was the fragrance I wore when I met her, and probably to this day my most complimented fragrances that I've ever gotten. So YSL Myself, I get more compliments from Myself than the Y fragrances, so that's why I'm picking it. Next is Givenchy. Okay, Givenchy, I don't really understand much about Givenchy. I know they're obsessed with iris, and they have a lot of sweet fragrances, but they don't really do many fresh fragrances. They've tried with like Gentleman Cologne, like Givenchy Gentleman Cologne, and I didn't really like that one. I thought it was a little bit cheap smelling, or just weird. Like smelled like disinfectant, or like a hospital. Like has this weird like. It might be the Oakmoss Iris Neroli combination, Neroli Oakmoss Iris. When they use that combination, it smells a little bit like a hospital, or like Dettol, like some kind of disinfectant thing. Anyway, so I didn't like Givenchy's DNA, but there is a few that I like. I really like Society Extreme, and I like Givenchy Pie. So for me, it was kind of between Givenchy Pie and the Society Extreme, but I just think Society Extreme is way better than anything else they've ever released. So for me, it wasn't really that hard to actually choose from this house. I think Society Extreme is the best, but I also think Givenchy do a lot of women's fragrances a lot better as well. So Society Extreme is my pick. Next is Carolina Herrera. I was debating whether I should go with like the CH Men Privé or the Bad Boy lineup because they have some pretty good fragrances in the Bad Boy collection. There's Extreme, there's the EDT Bad Boy, there's the Cobalt Elixir. My personal pick is the Bad Boy EDT because I think it's citrusy, creamy tonka. I really like that citrus tonka DNA. It's just so simple and foolproof. Like, it just smells good. It's mass appealing, smells good, and I love the balance of fresh and sweet when it's done really well. I think that the EDT Bad Boy is still the best. I didn't like the Le Parfum. I didn't really like the Cobalt Electrique, but I do like the Cobalt Elixir and the other Cobalt one that they have. And the Extreme's also pretty good, except the Extreme's really sweet. Oh yeah, and CH Man Privé, it's nice, but it's a little bit more challenging to wear. You know, like it's got that I think it's whiskey and leather or something like that in it. So next is Paco Rabanne, and I didn't know what to choose from Paco Rabanne because they have a million fragrances. They have tons of Invictus flankers. There's 1 million flankers. There's Pure XS Night. There's so many good Paco fragrances. They've even come out with like Paco Red and stuff like that. For me, well, it was between 1 million EDT because I don't like the other 1 million flankers, or it was like one of the like Pure XS Night, or like maybe an Invictus flanker. Out of all the Invictus fragrances, the original Invictus is the best. In my opinion, I think it's still the best Invictus they've ever released. The very first one. I never got to try Invictus Aqua. I've heard it's good. I do like Invictus Platinum a lot. So it was like between Invictus or Invictus Platinum. And I think I just like Invictus DNA a little bit more than the 1 million DNA. Just it's a little bit more fresh. I like that fresh sweet combination. I think they've done a really good job with the using jasmine in a way that smells like more like masculine without being like too feminine or anything. And it's a groundbreaking DNA, man. Look how many fragrances have cloned Invictus already. So next is Maison Margiela, and it was really a no-brainer for me. I would go with By the Fireplace from Maison Margiela. Yeah, also, I don't know if some of these houses are actually designer brands or niche, so for me, that's a problem. I don't know if this video is going to include some niche houses. I didn't even know Maison Margiela was a designer house until like recently, so I'm putting it in this list. Replica By the Fireplace is my pick. Beautiful vanilla. Just smokiness isn't for everyone. It's not an everyone fragrance. It's a little bit smoky and woody, but I like this one a lot. It's really comfortable, cozy scent to wear in the cold weather. You could, of course, go with Jazz Club, or if you want something more fresh, you could go with like Sailing Day or When the Rain Stops, something like that. But for me, By the Fireplace is going to be my pick because it's just like a comfortable, cozy scent. And Hermes, here's a house I don't really like anything from. So I've given Hermes a chance already, and I don't really like the Terre d'Hermes fragrances. So for me, it was just between two fragrances only. It was either the Terre d'Hermes Eau Givré, which is the best of the Terre d'Hermes line, or there was one that I recently tried called Rockabar, which was like an ambery kind of like sweet, fresh, ambery kind of fragrance. And you know what? I'm going with Rockabar. It's probably not the pick you expected, but I like this fragrance more than the Terre d'Hermes fragrances. So I'm going with Rockabar for Hermes. Next is Issey Miyake. Well, they have a ton of flankers, obviously, and there's like the different collections they have. But I like the dry down a lot of the solar lavender that they just came out with. I really like that solar lavender dry down. Opening's not that great, but I also really like the Issey Miyake Low Dissy Sport. So the Sport flanker of the Low Dissy one. And I'm going to pick that. I'm going to pick the Low Dissy Sports because I think it's citrusy, woody, and they actually put a little bit of leather in there too. Leather or suede or something. But to me, I think it smells really good. I like this one a lot. And super underrated. Probably the most underrated from the Issey Miyake line. Even though I think they have some coconut fragrances as well. I think the Fusion DC is another one, like with the coconut in it. I only really liked the original Fusion DC. I didn't like the Extreme. I think the Extreme smells horrible. But there's like the Nui DC, which is like the vanilla-y, sweet, ambery kind of fragrances. For me, it's Issey Miyake Sport or Solar Lavender, like one of those two. And next, Alice Brooklyn, which is which is a house that I believe is pretty much targeted towards women, because I don't think Alice Brooklyn have any man scents. I've smelled pretty much all of their fragrances, and they don't really smell like they're marketed towards men. But I do like Alice Brooklyn fragrances a lot, actually. Ironically, I tend to wear a lot more feminine fragrances. Despite being a guy, they do work for me a lot better. I get more compliments and stuff from wearing the more feminine fragrances. And this was between like 2 or 3 different ones. I like Sunfruit, I like Miami Nectar, and I like the Apple Love. But I'm going with Miami Nectar for this one because I like the coconut and that tropical vibe you get. Even though Sunfruit is also tropical and floral, I think Sunfruit just smells a lot more feminine than Miami Nectar does. So I would pick Miami Nectar because it smells a little bit more unisex and something that I would want to wear. And it lasts way longer as well. So this one actually has better performance than Sunfruit. So that's why I would pick Miami Nectar from Alice Brooklyn. Next is Valentino. Yeah, I don't like the Valentino Iris fragrances in the Uomo line, but I do like Born in Roma EDT. There was some Born in Roma fragrances that I didn't like, but I also like the Green Extravaganza. So for me, it was between the original Born in Roma EDT or Green Extravaganza. I recently had a chance to test both of them side by side at David Jones or Maya, and I like the original EDT a lot more. So the original Born in Roma EDT, still the best in my opinion. I'm going with that. Gucci. Oh, where have I start with Gucci? I've heard that they used to make really good fragrances and they all got discontinued, so that's a shame. I never got to try those. I would like to try Gucci Envy and stuff like that, but I never got to test them. So all I've really got to go with is the ones that I have tried. Gucci Guilty fragrance is pretty much all I've tried, and the only Gucci Guilty fragrance that I think I would actually buy and wear has got discontinued. I think it's the Intense Pour Homme. Gucci Guilty Intense Pour Homme is the one I like the most because it smells like YSL Intense. Ironically, they're both called Intense, so I think there's something going on there. I think they did copy each other. But I also like the Gucci Guilty Elixir as well, which smells like Amouage Reflection Man. So between Intense Pour Homme and the Elixir, I'm going with Intense Pour Homme, but it has been discontinued, so if you can't get that, just go with the Gucci Guilty Elixir, because that's also really good. Tiffany. I don't even know if it's fair to put this in the video because I've only really smelt one fragrance from Tiffany, so that kind of would disqualify it from this list because I've only tried one of their fragrances, which is Tiffany and Love for Him, which is a clone of Bleu Chanel. I'm putting it in the list just because it's the only one I've tried, but just keep in mind I haven't tried anything else from Tiffany yet, so doesn't really mean much. Next is Ralph Lauren. I like Ralph Lauren fragrances. They get not enough credit sometimes and not enough love. But the best Ralph Lauren fragrance would either be Deep Blue Parfum or the new Polo 67. But I like so many of their fragrances, like Polo Red. I like Polo Sport Fresh. I like Ralph's Club Parfum. For me, it's got to be the Deep Blue Parfum because I think that's their best fragrance they've ever made, and one of their longest lasting fragrances they've ever made as well. It lasts a really long time, but it also just smells really good. It's got that salty green mango smell. Then it's got like that aquatic smell. It's got the ambroxan. It's got some green elements like some cypress and some woods, and it smells aquatic and blue and citrusy and tropical and green and salty, and it's got that ambroxan. It's got some nice complexity there, so I think it's quite an interesting fragrance, and it is also mass appealing. But the new Polo 67, I do like that a lot as well, and I like the Polo Red fragrances too. So this was quite a tough choice for me, and I just went with the one that I wear the most, honestly, which is Deep Blue Parfum, and it's just kind of left a better impression on me over the years. So Burberry, a house that does get quite a lot of hate, but they have some good fragrances. Like the Burberry Hero fragrances are really good. I think in the past I've said Burberry Hero has some of the best cedar wood notes, period. I love the cedar smell in Burberry Hero. If you want something a little bit more interesting, there's Burberry Hero EDP, which adds some cinnamon and some sweetness to it. So it's a little bit more spicy and gourmand with that wood, and it's a little bit more complex. But for me, I'm going with Mr. Burberry EDT, one of the most hated fragrances ever. So that's a controversial take. But I think it doesn't deserve the hate it gets. This is minty, aquatic, it's aromatic, it's got like your mint, I think the tarragon in it, it's got like some aquatic notes. I think it smells fresh. I think it smells really good. It's quite an interesting fragrance. I think it was ahead of its time, actually. I think when it came out, people didn't really understand it as much. But now that people are getting more sick of the same DNA, they want something a little bit different. They want a blue fragrance that's a little bit more different than the other blue fragrances. And Mr. Burberry just still hits that spot. You know, it's got that mint and aromatics in it. It's just a little bit more different and interesting than the other typical blues out there. And the perfumer is Mason Francis Kurkdjian. So, you know, he did a good job with that fragrance. Louis Vuitton. Yes, and a very overpriced house, but they have some amazing fragrances. They're not groundbreaking, but they all smell really good. So Louis Vuitton have so many bangers. They have On the Beach. They have Symphony, Pacific Chill, L'Immensité, Imagination Meteore, California Dream, Orage, Stellar Times, Spell on You, like all those kind of like fragrances, you know. So really, I would have said Symphony was the best, but it's too expensive. In my opinion, it's got to be between Pacific Chill, On the Beach, or L'Immensité. And I'm going with what I think is going to be the most complimented, most wearable DNA out of them all. Pacific Chill. Fruity, tropical, really fresh and hot weather. Very unisex. Probably going to be like one of the most complimented fragrances of all time. I don't think many people are really wearing it. Not just because of the price tag, but I'd never really smell anyone wearing that DNA at all from Louis Vuitton. Like, I've smelt that Imagination DNA a lot of times before. It was not that interesting to me, but Pacific Chill, I don't really smell that anywhere. So, I'm going with Pacific Chill for this pick. Jean Paul Gaultier, that is also a tough one because they have the LeMail flankers, they have the Scandal flankers, they have the Le Beau flankers, and even in the past they had Essence de Parfum and stuff like that. For me, I'm not a big fan of the Le Beau line. Scandal does smell really good. Like, I like the Scandal Absolute a lot, but I like the LeMail flankers even more. So, out of all the LeMail flankers, I would go with Le Parfum. So that's gonna be my pick. LeMail, Le Parfum. Even though Ultramail was a banger and Scandal Absolute is also really good, I'm picking LeMail, Le Parfum from Jean Paul Gaultier. Love that iris, creamy, smooth, sexy DNA. Just really addictive to wear as well. So Guerlain. I like the Guerlain fragrances a lot, actually, but mainly they're ambery, more high-end fragrances, not like the other ones so much. So there's a lot to choose from in the Guerlain house. They have a little bit of everything. They have your vanillas, like a Spiritualiste, Double Vanille, Angelique Noir, Cua, Beluga. But if you don't want one of their vanilla fragrances, they offer an iris fragrance, like Iris Terrefi. If you don't like iris, you want something more fresh, they have the Aqua Allegoria line. They have Eau de Cotton, which is also a nice fresh fragrance. You have your more classy, sophisticated scents as well, which is like your L'Homme Ideal line. So my pick is actually going to be a L'Homme Ideal fragrance. This is going to be the Platine Privé fragrance. It's probably, to this day, the most mass appealing, classy fragrance they've ever released. So I also think it's the safest pick from Guerlain. Unfortunately, it's so hard to find and buy anywhere, especially in Australia. But Guerlain's L'Homme Ideal Platine Privé, it's also the only L'Homme Ideal fragrance I really like from Guerlain. I would usually go with more of the ambery fragrances like Spiritually Double Vanille or like a Cua Beluga or like Angelique Noir, something like that. So yeah, but it was between L'Homme Ideal Platine Privé and the Spiritually Double Vanille. I just think that some of those vanilla-y, ambery fragrances are not as wearable in the hot weather and stuff like that. So they're really nice, but you can't wear them as much. Next is Jimmy Choo. I was debating on picking Jimmy Choo Ice or Jimmy Choo Aqua. Ice is technically a clone of Dior Homme Cologne, which I've already put in the list. So I'm going with Jimmy Choo Aqua just because it's not a clone. And yeah, it also smells really good and it's going to get you tons of compliments. Even though you want something a little bit more interesting, you go with Urban Hero Gold, the gold edition, which is like citrusy vanilla, but then I'm pretty sure it's got like some leather and pepper in there too, which just make it a little bit more interesting than a more basic DNA like Jimmy Choo Ice or Aqua. But yeah, for me, it was between Ice and Aqua because they're the best smelling out of the Jimmy Choo fragrances. So Coach is the next one. Coach, ooh, they have Open Road, Coach Open Road, which is a clone of Dolce and Gabbana K. They have your Coach for Men, and out of the Coach for Men, there's like Coach Platinum, there's Coach Blue, there's Coach Green. You know what? I think I like all of the Coach fragrances I've ever tried. But I like Coach for Men the most. And that's also the most complimented fragrance. Just asking people which Coach they liked more. Coach Platinum, yes, it does smell like Sauvage and it gets a lot of compliments. But it doesn't get anywhere near as much attention as the original Coach for Men. There's something about that Coach for Men DNA that just people love it. You know, you smell it and it's just like gets so many compliments. I don't really even understand it myself why. It just works. So I'm picking Coach for Men, the original one. And Mazzoni is the next house. I don't know if Mazzoni is actually a designer house or a niche house. So sorry about that, but most people would think I'm going to put Mazzoni Wave in this list, but I'm not actually. I'm going to pick Mazzoni Parfum Pour Homme. I think it smells better than Mazzoni Wave. I really like that apple opening, and it's got like that bluted Chanel DNA, but instead they've used apple with that blue Chanel DNA, and it just works and smells really good. So, yeah, that's my pick. Mazzoni Parfum Pour Homme. And I think I got to go through this list a little bit faster now because I'm running out of battery on my phone. So let's see if I can just speed through the rest of this list. I'm running out of battery on my laptop, not my phone, sorry. So next is Mont Blanc. And Mont Blanc have a ton of fragrances. I'm going to pick Starwalker or Legend Blue, even though Legend is obviously Abercrombie & Fitch Fierce clone. I think Legend Blue is a clone of Percival from Parfums de Marly. So I really like the Legend Blue, actually. Smells amazing. And Starwalker is supposed to be a clone of Versace Eau Fraiche. It's a tough choice because they're pretty much a clone house. Like Explorer is a clone of Aventus. Starwalker is a clone of Versace Eau Fraiche. Legend is a clone of Fierce. I think the Mont Blanc Individuel was not a clone, actually. I think Creed cloned them instead. So I'm going to pick Legend Blue. It was tough between Starwalker because that's one of my all-time favorites. If I had to ask people what smells better, I think more people would probably say Legend Blue smells better. Just because I know it smells like Percival, and I know exactly how many compliments I've got from Percival before, and it's a lot. So everyone loves the smell of Percival, and Legend Blue is like probably like one of the closest fragrances to that. Next is Kayali. Also, I don't know if it's a designer or niche house. I just see it in like Mecca or Sephora, one of those places. So my pick was not easy. It was between the Eden Lychee Vanilla 28 or the Vanilla Candy Rock Sugar. But I still think the Eden Apple smells the best out of all the Kayali fragrances, and then maybe like Vanilla 28 and stuff like that. So it was a very hard choice. I also smell Eden Apple on the most people in public. Each time I go out in the city and stuff and I walk past like girls, you can smell Eden Apple, and it's a DNA that's so recognizable just because it's got its own thing going on where you just recognize that fragrance, and it's a little bit more memorable. It just stands out. It smells really good. It lasts forever. It's an eternal lasting fragrance. Absolutely beast mode. And I love the apple. I just think the apple smells so good in that fragrance. Even I wear Eden Apple, you know. So next is Dunhill. And I should probably do a better job of trying more Dunhill fragrances, but the ones that I like the most are Dunhill Desire Red and Icon. And I think Icon is a very interesting complex fragrance. It's got like oak moss, neroli, iris, got your citrus and stuff like that going on. But I like Dunhill Desire Red more. I just think it smells better. It's got like a little bit of that Xerjoff Uden DNA in there, but it doesn't really smell exactly like Uden. It smells a little bit like Bond Number 9 Lafayette Street as well. It smells a little bit like Tommy Hilfiger Original Tommy. It's a really interesting fragrance, and I just think there's something about Dunhill Desire Red that just like makes me like it a little bit more. It gets my attention and makes me want to like wear it. So I always like when a fragrance stands out more than another one, you know, and then yeah, that's the reason I'm picking it. Kenneth Cole is the next one. I'm going with Mankind, even though back in the day I used to wear Reaction, which was also a nice fresh apple fragrance. Reaction was one of my teen fragrances I used to wear in the teens, but it's been discontinued, and I just think that Mankind is better. It smells nice and soapy and clean and fresh, like a nice shower gel fragrance. So next is Atkinson's. I don't know if Atkinson's is niche or designer, but I'm gonna assume it's a designer brand, and I'm going with Mint and Tonic. Obviously, love that minty gin and tonic smell. Fresh, really good in hot weather. Mass appealing. Although, if you want something different, something a little bit more like Initio Side Effect, then you go with Burlington Arcade. And if you want something a little bit more citrusy and gingery, you can go with Gerard Street as well. So Burlington Arcade, Gerard Street, or Mint and Tonic. But my pick would be Mint and Tonic, sorry. Next is Hugo Boss. They have a lot of fragrances, tons of Boss bottled fragrances, tons of The Scent fragrances. There is also a bunch of other ones they've released as well, like the flask bottles. So the best is still to this day the original Boss bottled, or number 6 as they would call it. Apple, cinnamon, plum, just a DNA that just works. Timeless scent. To this day still smells amazing. Hasn't become outdated or aged at all, in my opinion. But I do like the Scent Elixir. I like Boss in Motion. I like the Hugo Reversed. I like some of the other stuff they've released as well. Boss Bottled Tonic, Boss Bottled Pacific. They've got a lot of choices. Even the Boss Bottled Elixir, if you want something a little bit more interesting. So next is Montclair, and I would go with the black bottle, the Pour Homme Sunrise. I think it smells really good from Montclair, and it's like their entry level safe mass appealing fragrance, and it just smells really good as well. So I can't say much more about that. I haven't really tried much from Montclair before, but I did try the men's and women's fragrances, the silver bottle and the black bottles from men's and women's, and I like the black bottle the most. I think that's called Sunrise. So next is Michael Kors Pour Homme. I don't know if you can disqualify this or whatever, but I've only tried the Pour Homme from Michael Kors fragrances, and that smells a little bit like Coach for Men. I like that a lot actually. So that's my only pick. It's the only one I've tried, and it smells good. So I'm putting that in the lists. Next is Tommy Bahama, and this was hard for me because there's a bunch of different fragrances from Tommy Bahama. There's Set Sail, St. Bart's, St. Kitts, Maritime Journey. There's a bunch of different flankers in like all their collections or whatever you want to call it. But I'm just going with the original Maritime. I don't know why. It's a nice aquatic fragrance that I just like recently tried again at Chemist Warehouse, and I was like, you know what? I really like this. It's a nice cheapy fragrance, and I was like, I don't hear anyone really talking about the original Tommy Bahama Maritime. I know some people will give more attention to like St. Bart's and Set Sail and stuff. For me, I like the original Maritime by Tommy Bahama. So next is L'Occitane or L'Occitane. I recently just got into this house, and I tried maybe 3 or 4 of their fragrances. But I think their best is Eau de Beau from L'Occitane. I didn't really like the one with the green liquid in a clear bottle, or the other one. But they smell good. Don't get me wrong. Just not as good as the Eau de Beau, which is a nice kind of like vanilla-y, ambery scent. So Eau de Beau, I still think the best from L'Occitane. Now Zara, it's a clone house pretty much. Zara do a lot of clones. They may have some original fragrances, but no one's really talking about Zara fragrances, in my opinion. So I was at the Zara shop, right? And there was like a million different things to choose from. They have so many fragrances that Zara have released, and no one really knows about half of them. So I'll put you on to a few. The ones that I like the most are Seoul Absolute, which is like a Rasasi Hawas kind of cologne. There's Absolutely Dark, which is a fierce cologne. They got like the Vibrant Leather, which is like the Aventus colognes. Or there's the Tobacco Collection, which also includes Rich Warm Addictive. So if you had to get into the house, I would recommend one of those. For me, I like either Absolutely Dark, which is a fierce clone, or Seoul Absolute. So I'm going to go with Seoul Absolute. It just caught my attention a little bit more. I smelt it, and it had this fruity, Invictus, kind of Rasasi Hawas DNA going on. And for that reason, I'm going to pick it because it just, like, I smelt it, and I was like, this is good. And then I was, like, trying to think, what does it remind me of? And I was like, Rasasi Hawas, you know? It had that nice plum, bubblegum, fruity Invictus smell. Next is Dolce & Gabbana. They have so many good fragrances, and I was debating whether I should go with the 1 EDT or Light Blue Intense for men. But then I recently tried Devotion Intense as well and Devotion EDP. Let me just say this. Devotion, everyone's wearing it right now. I smell it absolutely everywhere. And it smells like Serge of Lyra. I can recognize the DNA anywhere now. Like on the trains, I smell everyone wearing Devotion. So I'm a little bit sick of it by now because I've smelled so many people wearing it just in the last few days or weeks. So I'm going with Light Blue Intense for men. It's just a nice salty aquatic marine fragrance. To this day, it just smells good to pretty much everyone. I think it's pretty impossible to hate the smell of the intense Light Blue Intense for men. And I really need a drink as well. Okay, so Calvin Klein is next. I'm going to keep this simple, just going with CK Aromatic Essence, the new aromatic essence that came out. It's a nice aromatic coconut creamy fragrance with some juniper and cardamom in there too. Super strong beast mode lasting fragrance. The coconut's just done really well. Mass appealing, sexy DNA, and probably the best release from Calvin Klein ever. Although CK Defy also have some good fragrances too. I know Defy EDT, EDP, also really nice. Okay, Victor and Rolf. You pretty much know it's just between the Spice Bomb flankers already. But which Spice Bomb? I'm a Spice Bomb hater, actually. I don't like Spice Bomb that much. But if I had to pick one of the Spice Bombs I like the most, it would have been Night Vision, because it smells the least like all the other Spice Bomb fragrances. So I'm going with Spice Bomb Night Vision. A nice cinnamon and apple fragrance, I believe. And it's got like that apple pie smell to it. Really nice fragrance, in my opinion. I'm going with Spice Bomb Night Vision. It's also one of the most hated fragrances out there. So it's a controversial pick, but that's my pick. Zadig and Voltaire. Okay, there's a lot of choices here. I could have went with one of the girls' fragrances. I could have went with This Is Him or This Is Her. But I'm going with Just Rock. It's made by one of my favorite perfumers, Aurélien Guichard or something. Yeah. He made Versace Eros anyway. Same guy that made Eros. He did a really good job with Just Rock. He made a very beast mode, woody, vanilla fragrance that smells a little bit like Tom Ford Oud Wood, but just way better than Tom Ford Oud Wood. So if you like that Oud Wood smell by Tom Ford, definitely try Just Rock. And you should like that a lot. The next is by Joe Loves. Not sure if it's a niche or a designer house, but I'm going with Joe Loves. And for me, the pick is Cobalt Patchouli Cedar, even though they also have another one called Joe by Joe Loves. And then there's Amber Bergamot Lime. But Cobalt Patchouli Cedar is the one that stood out the most. It's the one I like the most from Joe Loves. Next is Joe Malone. And obviously I'm going to pick the most hyped one from that house. It's wood sage and sea salt. It inspired Pacific Rock Moss by Goldfield and Banks and a few other fragrances. In my opinion, wood sage and sea salt. It's really nice, salty, sage, aquatic, woody fragrance, like the name suggests. It smells like the name suggests, so it's not misleading. Also, it lasts a really long time. But the other pick would have been maybe like ginger biscuit or something, which coming up to Christmas would be a really good fragrance to wear around Christmas time. It smells like a gingerbread cookie. So if you want something really interesting to wear around Christmas time, try the Jo Malone ginger biscuit fragrance. It's pretty delicious smelling. Next is Ferragamo. You have Acqua Essenziale Blue. You have the Ferragamo fragrances. There's like the F fragrances. There's the Uomo fragrances. I'm going with F Black. Ironically, it was a hard choice. I really wanted to pick Acqua Essenziale Blue or Intense Leather. Intense Leather is probably one of the best leathers, period, ever made. Acqua Essenziale Blue, one of the best blue fragrances ever made. Also made by Alberto Marias. And that also smells a little bit like Versace Dylan Blue. But I'm going with F Black because it's one of the most original, unique smelling fragrances ever as well. It smells powdery, soapy, clean, fresh. It's got a little bit of that apple, lavender, and some black pepper in there. I think it's got a little bit of cardamom or something going on in there too. Really sexy. No, wait. Yeah, I'd say it's kind of sexy just because of that powdery smell. It's a little bit similar to La Nuit de l'Homme actually, just way more fresh and soapy. So F Black I think is a really good pick from Ferragamo. Even though if I had to recommend a fragrance to someone, I would most of the time recommend Acqua Essenziale Blue to people because I think more people are gonna like Acqua Essenziale Blue if I had to recommend them something. So this video is not what I recommend to people. It's mainly a personal opinion of what I would wear for myself, you know. So next is Nautica. I'm going with Nautica Voyage just because all the other Nautica fragrances smell cheap, and yes, Nautica Voyage also smells cheap. So it just comes down to what cheapy smells better. Nautica Voyage I think just smells better than the other Nautica fragrances, in my opinion. I like that cucumbery, apple, aquatic smell. It's got like a lotus or some kind of like watery floral smell in there, and it's just so fresh. I've said in the past Nautica Voyage is one of the most fresh fragrances out there. Still to this day I agree with that opinion. It's a really good hot weather fragrance to wear in hot weather, out the shower, at the gym, you know, just like anytime. So next is Versace. I'm going with Versace Dylan Blue for this list. Musky, citrusy, woody, some incense, some cypriol or papyrus in there. It's got a lot of ambroxan. It's got depth. It's a very long-lasting beast mode fragrance. And of course, Versace, pretty much anything from Versace you could put in the list, whether it's Pour Homme, Eau Fraiche, Eros, you know, so it's really not an easy pick. But for me, the one I get the most compliments from is Dylan Blue over all the other ones. So yes, Eros will get you tons of compliments, but I think Dylan Blue is going to be more wearable than Eros majority of the time because it's a little bit more fresh and it smells a little bit more grown up. So if you are in like your 30s, maybe 30, late 20s, you're probably going to be wearing Dylan Blue a little bit more than Eros. So next is Tommy Hilfiger. I'm just going with the original Tommy. Classic. Smells better than all the other Tommy fragrances in my opinion. I didn't like the Impact fragrances by Tommy or some of the other releases. So just the classic white bottle Tommy. Brilliant fragrance. Smells like Dunhill Desire Red. So for that reason, I'm going with that. It's a little bit fruity and I like it. Prada. Okay. There's the Luna Rossa line, which includes Luna Rossa Black, Carbon, Ocean EDT. Very tough pick, but nothing's ever going to top Prada L'Homme for me in the Prada house. Prada L'Homme is still the best Prada fragrance ever released. and I don't see anything really surpassing Prada L'Homme that they can come out with in the future. Because I think Prada L'Homme was a perfect fragrance, and you can't beat a perfect fragrance unless you come out with another perfect fragrance. And I can't say they've come out with another perfect fragrance since then. So I'm just going with Prada L'Homme. Clean, soapy, fresh iris, a little bit powdery. Also quite long lasting for me as well. And very versatile as well. Office safe, office friendly, inoffensive. It's got everything going on. So next is Tom Ford. I don't know if they're designer or niche, but Tom Ford, I'm putting them in this list. And I don't really like much Tom Ford fragrances. It was between like Noir Extreme, Vanilla Sex, Ombre Leather, Neroli Portofino, Mandarino di Amalfi. I'm going with Mandarino di Amalfi for the Tom Ford pick. It's probably their most mass appealing, fresh, safe fragrance, besides Neroli Portofino. But Neroli is an interesting note that to some people can smell like sweat or a little bit cheap. So if I have to think about that, then I would put Mandarino di Amalfi above Neroli Portofino, because I think Neroli a little bit to some people, but Mandarino di Amalfi smells just as good or even better. And Ombre Leather, obviously the best leather fragrance of all time, smells pretty damn good. But if you want like a nice vanilla-y gourmand style fragrance, Noir Extreme or Vanilla Sex also really good too. Loewe. I actually never got the chance to try many Loewe fragrances. I went into like 2 different stores, and they only had 1 fragrance in their stores in Australia. And I was like, what is going on here? But I know Loewe have tons of fragrances. You just can't get them in Australia. So Loewe, the only one I really got to try was the Loewe 001 for men. And that's kind of like a nice citrusy, woody, grapefruit, mossy style fragrance. It's a very classy, citrusy, woody fragrance, but very basic. Based on what everyone else kind of hypes up, they would say number 7 or number 7 Cobalt. So there's also Essentia EDP, which is an Aventus clone. There's like a whole bunch of other fragrances, like the Polar Ibiza. I think it's called Polar's Ibiza or something. Anyway, even though I haven't smelt it, I'm going to put number 7 in this list because I know that's what more people actually hype up. But I'm going to disqualify it from this list, Loewe, because I've only tried 1, which is the 001. So I can't really say much about the Loewe, unfortunately. So it's disqualified from this list, but I still put it in the list just for the fact that it's a designer brand, Next is Moschino, which is pretty much a girl's house, besides having like 1 man's fragrance that I know about, which is Toy Boy. But there's also Toy for girls, so I like the girls' fragrances from Moschino, actually. This is going to be quite funny, but I'm going to pick Toy 2, the bubblegum one, because it smells straight up like red pink bubblegum that you would eat. And you know what? I think it's fun. I think it's a fun fragrance. I don't see any guys ever going to wear it, but I actually like the smell of the Toy 2 bubblegum, just because it smells like bubblegum. And for a girl, if you're wearing it, it's super fun fragrance. Something I'd like to smell on someone, at like a fun type of event, So next is Chloe. I think this is also a girl's house, but they do have a few unisex fragrances. There's a really nice Iris fragrance actually by Chloe. So Chloe Iris. I think it's just called Iris. But I believe I like Nomade more. So Nomade by Chloe is my pick. And it's not really a man's fragrance. It's more of a girl's fragrance. So just keep that in mind. But Chloe Nomade is my pick. Now, I'm just going to quickly just run through the next few list of fragrances because I'm on like 1 bar left of battery here. Rocus Man, they're probably the best Rocus fragrance. Raspberry, coffee, vanilla. But then Mustache EDP is also really good because it's a clone of YSL Tuxedo. Rocus Man is my pick, despite having like a weird shaped bottle. It smells really good. So next is Halloween Man, or Halloween, the brand. I'm going with Halloween Man X because I really like the coffee, sweet kind of DNA they've done there with Halloween Man X. It smells like coffee, but it's a very wearable coffee fragrance. Although you could put like Halloween Man Shot in here too, if you really wanted to. I'm going with Halloween Man X for this one. So Davidoff, pretty much, I only know their cool water fragrances, and there's a lot of cool water flankers, but my favorite cool water flanker is the Intense. It's a nice lime coconut, a lime and coconut fragrance that's super beast mode. It lasts literally forever. Spray it on your clothes, lasts for weeks, and also it's very cheap as well, under $50. So next is Lacoste. I need to try the Lacoste L'Homme Intense, and I need to try Lacoste Pour Homme because I've heard they're really good. But the one I like the most right now is probably L1212 Blank White EDT. So the Lacoste Blank White bottle, but the EDT one. It's a nice like white florals, but it's also got like a freshness to it. It's fresh, but it's a white floral fragrance for men, which is really interesting. You don't get too many white floral fragrances from men, but this one is just really good. So next is Mercedes. I'm going with Mercedes Club Black, probably the best vanilla fragrance ever made. Yeah, not much more I need to say, but it's really good. So Abercrombie & Fitch, Fierce. Don't need to say much more. Soapy, musky, sexy. One of the most cloned fragrances of all time. The next is Azzaro. I'm going with Chrome Extreme, even though there's a bunch of other chrome fragrances. I like Chrome Extreme the most. Nice aquatic fragrance with some green elements in there. But Most Wanted Parfum, also really good. It's got like some gourmand toffee notes in there as well. Bulgari, I'm going with Aqua Atlantique. Even though Man in Black is also really good. It smells a little bit like Initio Side Effects. No, it smells a little bit like Spice from Extreme, sorry, but it's got some iris and leather in there too. And Narciso Rodriguez, I'm going with Blue Noir Parfum, just because I don't really like any of the Narciso Rodriguez fragrances, but this one, it's got iris, leather in there. It's obviously a Dior Homme Intense clone, but it smells better than Dior Homme Intense in my opinion. So I have to end the video here. I had to just rush through those last ones, so I apologize for that. But thank you for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace out. The next one is going to be niche fragrances, okay? So keep an eye out for that.